All right, good morning. It's just after 8 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. All right, so this week's material was all about strings. What is a string in Python? How do we use strings? How do we manipulate strings, and a bunch of different functionality that we can do with strings. So first, let's talk about what a string is. A string in Python is nothing more than a sequence of individual letters or individual characters, right? Just like any word in natural language, it's just a series of consecutive characters. Now, a string in Python is not necessarily just a word. A string can contain multiple words, right? It's just a sequence of characters, and some of those characters can be spaces. Some of those characters can be what we call a new line, meaning go to the next line on your display, but it can all still be contained within the same string. Get rid of all this stuff from last time. There we go. All right, so let's talk about all the different things that we can do with strings. Okay, so first let's define a string. And you've done some of this stuff already, but a little bit, the beginning of it will be a little bit of review. So we have a string called S. S is just a variable name. We say, this is my string, right? And let's print out what the type of it is, and then we'll just print out the S itself. Nothing should be surprising here. Stuff we've already looked at. We run it. Oop, it's Python 3 file. Okay, there we go. It says the type is str, which stands for string. That's what we're printing there. And then we just print out S, print out the string itself, where it says this is my string. It's nothing you haven't already been doing in the class. Okay, so what are some things we can do with the string? Maybe we want to know how long is the string. If we want to know how long the string is, we can use the Python built-in function called len. It stands for length. This will tell us how many characters are in that string. We run it. See, it says 17. And so if we count up all these letters, we will see that there are 17 characters. And of course, that includes the white space. These spaces in here, those count as characters as well. So the entire thing is 17. And so we can add more characters on there. Save it and run it. And now it's 38 characters long. So this len, which stands for length, tells us how long that string is, how many characters are in it. And why is that useful? Well, let's put this back down smaller. It brings us to our next concept, which is a looping through a string. Now, we've already done looping in the class. Let's see how we can apply that to string. So let's say we want to print out each character individually. Well, if we do this, print S like this, we run that, of course, it just prints the whole string out in one go, right? But let's say we want to print each character individually. Well, we have to do it in a loop. And what's a loop in Python look like? In pseudocode, it's for variable in, I'm just going to call it an object. And we want to print the variable. That's kind of pseudocode for how, well, for one way that we can do a loop, and we'll see the other way in a minute, right? So how does this apply to string? So for variable, let's just call it C, because it's going to stand for an individual character in that string. And the object here is S, which is the string. And then we just want to print out that variable. So that is one way to loop through a string. This will loop through every single individual character in the string. Each time in the loop, that the character will be this C. And what are we doing with it? We're just going to print out the C. You could do anything that you like with that C. But for our example, we'll just print it out. And when we run this, we'll see that it still prints out every character in the string, but it prints them out on like one per line. Instead of the string all in one go, it prints them out one at a time. Save it, run it, and there you go. But it still has, this is my string because that's being printed there. And then it's doing the loop and printing one character at a time, as you can see it doing here. This is my string. And you don't have to just print it. You can do whatever you want with that C. Whatever that you can do with a character, you can do with that C. Okay. What's the other way to do a loop? Well, we'll leave that way for loop. And the other way is what we've seen previously in the class before as well. We do for I in range the length of S. And here we will say C is equal to S of I. I'll explain it in a second. Print C. So what is this doing? This is also doing a loop. So we discussed at the top, the length of S tells us how many characters are in it, right? And I think for this string, there were 17 characters, right? So this length of S is just the number 17, right? So what does this I in range of 17 do? What this does, it lets you do a loop and it will count up that many characters. So first, let's just print I. Let's make this string shorter, this string, so we don't have as much stuff printed on the screen. So what will this loop do right here? For I in range, the length of S. Like I said, the length of S, now it's like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, this is like 15 characters, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Sorry, that's 11 characters long. So this is saying for I in range of 11. What it does, it counts up to 11, but it's not including 11, and it starts at 0. Let's just run it to describe it better. Of course, you get this string, then we get this loop, which does this string, and then we get this loop, which does 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? Those are numbers 0 through 10. And that's because the length of S was 11. So this will do a loop that goes 0 through 10. It's one less than whatever you have right here. Okay, so let's get an individual character out of there. We say C is equal to S of I. And then we're going to print I equals, I think this works, S. What am I doing here? These are what we call an index, meaning I have this string S and I want to access this character, like that character position. So as we just saw a second ago, the I in range, the length of S, counts up 0 through basically the end of the string. So the first time in the loop, this I is equal to 0. The next time in the loop, the I is equal to 1. The next time, the I is equal to 2, and so on and so forth. So when I say S, and then these brackets, and when this is 0, it's going to give me the 0 position character, the first character. Next time, I will be 1, so this will be S of 1. That'll be the next character. S of 2 will be the next character, and so on and so forth. And we'll see that happen when we do this print right here. Let me comment this out real fast so we don't have to run it. Let's save it and run it. And there we go. We still get this as a string, but now we're saying we're going to print the I and print the C. Like I said, the I is counting 0 through 10, and the C is getting the individual character at that position in the string. So you see the 0 is the T, the 1 is the H, the 2 is the I, the 3 is the S, the 4 is a blank space, and so on and so forth. Okay. So for some reason we needed to access individual characters in the string, we would use one of these two methods here. And either one works. So that's how we loop through a string and access individual characters to do whatever you want to do. Let's say, for example, we want to see, does the string have an A in it? Right? If C is equal to A, print it has an A. And we'll do the same thing here. If C is equal to A, print it has an A. Actually, we'll do B here. And then we'll just print the end. So we run this. Does it have an A or a B? And it actually doesn't. So we're not going to get those printouts, right? Run it. This string, the end. No. Let's change the string to have A whatever. Save it and run it. It has an A. And why? Because we passed this check right here. It still didn't have a B, so we didn't get this. Let's add a B in there. Now we should get both of them printed. There you go. It has an A, it has a B. So that's one way we can check if a string has a specific letter in it. Right? You can do whatever you want to do with that individual character. Okay, let's look at this more right here, this S sub I. Right? These are what we call string slices, meaning a substring of the original string. So when we did this, let me undo that. When we did this S of I, we were getting one single individual character, right? That's because this I is just one single number. What if we wanted to get more than one character out of here? Let me just do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. There we go. Just the first few letters of the alphabet. Okay. So we saw how to access an individual character. And we don't even have to do it through a loop. We can say C is equal to S sub 4. Print C. We can do that, and that'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that'll be the E, and it is. It prints out an E for us. Okay. So you use a single number in here if you want a single character. What if we want more than one character? Let's say we want all of this. Excuse me. Let's just say we want the A, B, and C. We want the first three characters. Well, we could specify in here multiple characters, and we do it like this. First, we specify the one we want to start with. If I want to start with A, remember the numbering starts at 0. So A is 0, B is 1, C is 2, so on and so forth. So if we want A, B, C, we would start at 0. Then we put a colon. And then we put the one that we want to end with plus 1. And the plus 1 is important. So for example, if we wanted to end on the C, so A is 0, B is 1, C is 2, so we have to put a 3 there. Now this will give us the first 3 characters of that string. Let's save it and let's run it. And now you can see we get A, B, C. That's what C is. It's A, B, C. It's the first 3 characters. So we have sliced off the first 3 characters of this string. Likewise, we could put everything but the last one. Let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. G is 6. So we have to put a 7. We save it and run it. And there you go. It's everything but the last character. And of course, you don't have to start at the beginning. we could start somewhere else. Let's say we started at 2. What are we going to get for our printout? Well, which character is 2? A is 0, B is 1, C is 2. So this is going to start at C and go through 7 minus 1. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those are the characters we should get printed out. C through G, and there you go. We get C through G as the characters that we have printed out. So this is what we call, like I said, a string slice, where we select a substring of this original string. Again, the first number is the index that you want to start at. The second number is where you want to stop, plus 1. Okay, that's a string slice. Let's introduce another concept, that strings are what we call immutable. Actually, let me show you one more thing with this. What if we put a number that doesn't exist? 12. You know, there's not a character 12 in here, right? Because let's count them up again. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? So if there's 7 there, I could put 8 here because you put the last plus 1, right? So 8 works. And it goes C through H. But what if we would put 9 here? What's going to happen? There is no character after the H, right? What's going to happen here? It still works, right? I'll tell you, this is very bad practice. You don't want to do this. See, it still works. Look, in Python 2, Python 2 would actually crash at this point. Python 3 is a little bit smarter about it. But your last index, you never want it to be beyond the string, right? So what's a way here that we could select the last of the string? There's actually 2 ways we can do it. One, remember we have the length of S. What's that going to do? So let's figure out what the length of S is. The length of S is how long S is. Let's just print it out. Print the length of S. Oops. Print that out and see what happens. Run that. See, the length of S is 8. So this right here is just like having the number 8 right there. Okay, and that works fine. That's not beyond the string. Remember, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 plus 1 gets us 8. So 8 is an okay number to put here. There's another little shortcut we can use. If you want to go to the end of the string, you can just leave it blank. It's still important to have this semicolon in there. Excuse me, that's a colon. It's still important to have the colon in there, because the colon is saying I'm doing a string slice. So this says start at 2. And since the second part here is blank, it means go to the end of the string. So we save it and run it. And it works. It goes to the end of the string, right? Likewise, we can have a blank at the beginning. A blank at the beginning means start at the beginning of the string. Run that, and you see we get ABC, which is fine because it starts at the beginning and goes 3 characters. Excuse me, goes to the index 3. So it'll be right there. You could have this where they're both empty, but that's just the whole string. All right, now let's talk about how strings are immutable. Okay, so What immutable means, it means once it is created, it cannot be changed. That's the definition of immutable. Its properties cannot be changed. And what do we mean by that is that once you create a string, you cannot change the characters that are in that string. Now, it does get a little bit tricky when looking at some Python code, and you may think that you're changing the characters of a string, but you're not changing the characters of the string. Now, let's see what I'm talking about. So we have this string to start with, and we print s. Remember, we had this loop, I in range the length of s. C is equal to s of I. We had this a few minutes ago. Let's run that. Of course, there we go. We're accessing each character individually. So right here, we're saying the character at this position, and then we're going to print out that character. Right? Well, let's try to change the character. Just like we have C is equal to this, we could have S of I is equal to Z. We'll print out the C, then we'll print out the S of I. And then at the end, we'll just print out the S again. So is this going to actually change the character? So we said S of I is a single individual character in the string. Well, maybe we want to try to set a character in the string to this value, the Z. What's going to happen? Right? We get an error. It tells you on line 6 is where the error is. We look at line 6. This is where our error is. And right here it tells you the string object does not support item assignment. That means the string is immutable. It can't be changed, but we tried to change it. But you can't do that in Python. You can't change the individual strings. Excuse me. You cannot change the individual characters in a string. All right. And show you that is the issue. Let's just take that out. And it runs fine. You know, it prints out a bunch of stuff here. Runs fine. But it's just showing you we cannot change the individual characters in a string once you have created that string. Where it gets confusing is when you do something like this. Say we have that string, and now we do this. Can we do that? Is that going to crash and give us an error? It's actually not. This is okay. If we run it, you see we get the first thing, so we get the first string, and then we get the QWERTY. So how come we can do this? We can say this variable is equal to that, and then the same variable is equal to that string, right? Is that not changing the characters of the string? And the answer is it's actually not, right? Because this, when you have the whole variable is equal to this, you're actually creating a brand new string. So first, S is equal to this string, you know, those characters. Now we're saying S is equal to this whole new, completely different string. These two are not the same string, they're different strings. So when we say S is equal to each of them, we're not changing the characters of the string itself. We're just saying S is a completely new, a completely different string. It's a brand new string. So that's how you can get away with kind of this assignment here, and it not violate that a string is immutable, because I am making a new string when I just say the variable is equal to it. Okay. So after you assign a variable a new value, you're basically overriding the old variable. That's a question I got in the chat. And yes, that is correct. Once I have done this, then this is completely gone. I have lost all access to that. This is just changing what the value is of that variable. So yes, you're overriding the old variable. And it doesn't even have to be the same type. So we're saying the string is equal to that. Down here, I can have it equal to a number. And we can do that in Python. Save it and run it. And that works fine. But once I've done this, I can no longer access this QWERTY string. I can no longer access this alphabet string. They've been lost to me at this point. Because once I said S is equal to QWERTY, I have lost that. Once I have said S is equal to 123, I have lost that string. It's gone to me now. But yes, this just, it uses the same variable, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And just assigning it a new different variable, overriding it. Okay. So next thing, loops and counting. We've already done some loops. Let's just make another loop here. Right? We've already seen this one. This loops over each individual character. Let's say we want to count up how many A's are in the string. Right? Let's say we have that string there. How many A's are in that string? How can we count how many A's? Well, we need a variable to count. I'm just going to call it C. It starts at 0. Why does it start at 0? Because I'm going to count, and I haven't counted any A yet. So we'll just start it at 0. Now, for each character, is that character an A? If it is, we're going to increase our counter. So we can print, there are count A in this string. Does that work? It does. So our count starts at 0. We will loop over every character in the string. If that character is an A, then my count is just going to go up by 1. So that's a quick, easy way to count up how many A's. It says there are 4 A's in there. Is that right? We got 1, we got 2, we got 3, and we got 4. There are 4 A's in there. So that's right. Okay. We'll jump ahead one section and add on to this. What if we want to count if it's an uppercase or lowercase a? How do we do that? Well, we could do this. And then let's add a capital A on there, right? So that'll work, right? So we'll look at each character. If the character is a lowercase a, increase the count. If the character is an uppercase A, increase the count. This should give us 5, I think. And it does. It tells us there's 5 in there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's how you can count uppercase or lowercase. I'll show you a shorter way here in a minute. That's how we can loop through a string and count up things about the string. Okay. So let's go to our last part of the class. Well, almost last part. Talk about string methods. So we've already established that S is a string. Let's print out the type again. There we go. Is a str, which stands for string. So S is a string. There are a lot of built-in Python functions that do a bunch of useful operations with strings. So how do we know what are the functions we can use with a string? Actually, 2 ways. One is, well, I'll tell you my preferred way. My preferred way of finding out what I can do with a string is I will go to my favorite search engine. I will type in Python string, and one of the first few links will probably be documentation on Python strings. It'll tell you everything you can do with a string and how you work with the string. It's just about reading the documentation. That's my preferred method. But for some reason you don't have access to the internet, just like we have type here, we have another one called dir. This is another Python built-in function. What this will tell you, it'll tell you everything that you can do with a string. It'll tell you all the functions you can do with the string. Let's run this, and you get this back in result. You get all of these things. It's telling you functions you can use with a string. Most of the time you can ignore the ones with like these underscores. Usually if they have an underscore, it just means it's kind of internal to Python. It's not really meant to be used by users. You certainly can. If you try to use it, Python will let you use it. However, they're generally to be avoided. What you want to focus on is all the ones after that, which is all these. We have capitalize, case fold, center, count, enum, is alpha, is ASCII, is decimal, is digit, is identifier, is lower, etc., etc., etc. These are a bunch of different functions that you can use with strings. I'll show you how to use them, and I'll show you how you can find out what they actually do. So first, let's take, we'll use the find. Look right here, find is in here somewhere. There it is, right here. So find is one of the Python built-in functions for strings, right? So what does find do? Well, let's see what find does. Instead of dir, we can type in help s dot find. So how does this work? So s is a string, dot, we put in the function that we want to use, which is find. Find is a function for strings. So string is a, s is a string, dot, the function we want, which is find. We give that to a built-in function called help, and then we just print it out. And this will tell us about the find function. Run it. There we go. Help on built-in function find, method of built-in string instance, s.find. This arrow over int means that it's return type, meaning whenever I do s.find, it gives me back an integer. And what does it do? It returns the lowest index in S where the substring is found, such that it's contained within the start to the end. So what's that kind of sound like? And the name sounds like it can find characters for us. What do I mean by that? Let's say I is equal to s.find. What character do we want to find? Let's find the K. And we'll print I. So what is this doing? The string s dot the function find. This is what I want to find inside that string. I want to find a lowercase k. It will be equal to the index where that character is. And then we just want to print that out. So if we just look at our string with our eyes, where is the k? The k is right there. What index is that? Well, that's 0, 1, 2. K is index 2 in the string. So this should print out the number 2. Save it and run it. There we go. It prints out the number 2. Let's say we want the semicolon. Now note, there are 2 semicolons in here, but find will only give you the first one, index of the first one. Let's run it. It gives me index 3. Is that right? Yep. There's 0, 1, 2, and 3 is the index for that first semicolon. So using that dir and using that help, you can find out about any functions with strings that you want to find. Okay, so let's talk about a few common ones. So first, let me just put my name in here as a string. So let's talk about a few common ones. So when I do this, remember S is equal, it's creating a new string. Remember, we can't change the characters of a string. Strings are mutable, but we want to change the entire string, create a new string. Well, we have one called capitalize. What this will do, it will make a new string and it'll capitalize the first letter. Let's save it and let's run it. And there you go. You see the D is now capitalized. Python has no concept of like names. You know, we probably expect this letter to be capitalized as well, but it's not, because when you do the capitalize, it really just capitalizes the first letter of a sentence. Okay, what else do we got? We have upper. What this does, it'll create a new string where every character is capitalized. Let's run that. You see, all of the letters are now capitalized. Likewise, if we can have mixed case in here. We have one called lower. What do we think that does? It makes a new string where all of the letters are lowercase. If you run it, see there's the original string with a bunch of uppercase, lowercase, and here they are all lowercase. This right here is actually important in your assignment, and we'll get to that. All right, what else can we do? We can do find, which I've already described find. We can do what we call strip. Let me put this back in here. What does strip do? Strip means if there's any blank at the beginning or the end. See, let's print the length of S. We'll print the length of S on each side. So what we're doing here, we're making this string where it has a bunch of spaces, you know, my name, then a bunch of spaces. We'll print the S, then we'll print out how long it is. And then we're going to do this strip function. What strip does is any blank at the beginning and any blank at the end, it will remove. So let's run this. There you go. See, it looks like this. It has 22 characters. Then after we do the strip, it's the name without the beginning and ending blank spaces. Okay. Two more I want to show you. And these are all just the most common ones. We have starts with, starts with. Let's have A is equal starts with, B S dot ends with. And what we can do here, you can put a character if it starts with it. And print A, print B. So what's going to happen here? This will actually return true or false. It's going to say, with this string S, does it start with a lowercase d? And then this is going to say true or false. Does S end with a lowercase e? And then we're going to print them out. And what do we think this is going to print? It's actually going to print false and false. Why? This string does not start with a lowercase d. It starts with a blank space. So these are actually going to print false and false. But if we remove that and do put d at the beginning, and run it. It's now true and false. Why? A is true because the string does start with a lowercase d. If we had some spaces in there, note we just said it, it's false and false. We could do S. You could chain them together. S strip dot starts with. You can kind of chain these functions together, meaning S is this string. When we do S dot strip, it removes the beginning white space, the beginning spaces. So now you're going to say the string strip, does it start with a lowercase d? And the answer to that is yes, it does. There you go, true and false. And since this returns true or false, we can use it with our if statements. If that, print, yay, yeah, whatever, right? So if it starts with the lowercase d, print yeah. There you go, it prints yeah. So because the starts with gives you back true or false, you can use it with an if statement. The same thing with ends with, else, print no. So it does not end with a D, so it should print no. There it is, it prints no. We put Y, it's going to be yes now because when we do the strip, it removes the beginning and the end white space. And so after we remove the end white space, it does end with a Y. There you go, yeah. Last part to cover, and then we'll look at your assignment. So there's kind of two ways to determine if a character, there's two ways to determine if a character is in a string or if a string is in a string. So we already looked at the find. If s dot find, let's find Dan. Let's find D. If that does not equal -1, what do I mean by that? I forgot to mention this earlier. I equals s dot find D. Look at this. Print I. Remember, this gives me the index where D is. If we run that, it tells us that it's at 3. And is that right? It says 0, 1, 2, 3. It is index 3, right? What if we put Q? What is the index of Q? Q does not exist in this string. It's not there. So what does it give us? It gives us a -1. -1 is an indication that this does not exist. Okay. So with find, you don't have to limit yourself to a single character. You could put STE, and it'll find this sequence. It'll find STE within here. It doesn't have to be just a single string. And STE is, right there, whatever index that is. If we run it, it tells us it starts at index 10. So this right here starts at index 10. SET, what's going to be the answer here? The answer here is -1, and that's because SET does not exist in this string. So how can we tell if a string contains a character or other string? Well, we can do if s.find Dan does not equal -1, print it's in there. Else, print it's not. Oops. So we're going to do find on this string. We're going to look for DAN. If DAN does exist, it will be something other than -1, right? So we're going to say if it's not -1, then it is there. Else, it's not. Let's run it. And DAN, it's in there. DNA, however, is not. And why? S dot find of DNA, that will give me back a -1. So now we're going to say if -1 does not equal -1, that's false. So we skip this and we go to the else and we print out the else. So that's how we can do a determination if a string exists in another string. The other way we can do it is like this. It's a little bit shorter. We can say if Dan in S, print. Let's just copy and paste this. There we go. That's another way we can do it. Both of these accomplish the same thing, right? This one is using find, and this one is just using a little different syntax. You say if the string you're looking for in the variable string. Let's run it. And both of them say it's in there. Of course, if we change this, just say DN. The second one says it's not because DN is not in that string. What about this? And this is very important for your homework. Pay attention to this for your homework assignment. What if we have what if we capitalize my name? Right? And STE. Let's do this. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Okay. Actually, let's make it back lowercase again. Let's ease up the demonstration. There we go. All right. So we have lowercase Daniel, lowercase Steffi. So we're going to do find lowercase Daniel and then find lowercase Steffi. And both of them will be, it's in there, right? Because Daniel is in there. Well, what if they had capitalized? Now what are we going to get? It's not for both of them. And why? Because Daniel with a capital D is not the same thing as Daniel with a lowercase d. The same thing with Steffi. Okay, well, what if we did this? If Daniel, L if S dot find capital Daniel equal -1. Let's just take out the last name for now. Is this going to work? It will. It's in there. Okay. Well, what if we have the whole thing capitalized? Well, let's add another elif in here, right? Is this going to work? Yeah, this will work. It's in there. All right, what if we had a lowercase n and a lowercase e? All right. Hope you see where I'm going with this. Was it lowercase? Excuse me. Yeah, if we don't add anything, it doesn't work. It says it's not there. Okay. Well, let's add this case. Oops. Was it lowercase n or lowercase e? All right, let's save and run it. It's in there. All right. Well, what if the D was lowercase? Okay. Promise this will be the last time I do this. Well, we have to add in now the lowercase d. Let's save it and run it. And it works. Okay. Well, now the I is lowercase. And if we don't add a new thing, it's not there. You can see where this is just untenable. You can't keep doing this, right? So what have we seen so far that will help us out in this situation? All right. Remember our lower, and upper. Remember when we said, let's print s dot lower, and let's print s dot upper. What are these going to give us? This will give us the string in all lowercase. This will give us the string in all uppercase. Save it and run it. This is the original string. This is all lowercase, and this is all uppercase. So now, how can we find if my first name is in there? Well, if Daniel and s dot lower, print yes. Else, print no. We can take those out. And that captures all of it, right? Instead of those if elif statements that could have went on, probably hundreds of them, to catch every kind of possible permutation of that, we can just say, make the string lowercase and then see if this lowercase Daniel is in there. If we run it, yes, Daniel is in here. If you don't care about uppercase or lowercase, right? You can also do it with uppercase, but you have to make this s dot upper, and that works. There you go. Yes, it's in there. Of course, if you make this something different, that's not going to work. And why is it not? Because s dot upper makes everything uppercase, and here you're comparing a lowercase with it. Of course, that's not going to work. So when you do s dot upper, you need to make sure you're comparing all uppercase letters with it. Or if you want to do s dot lower, you gotta make sure you do all lowercase letters with it. And how does that apply to your assignment? Well, in your assignment, you're looking at a password and you're determining if it's a complex enough password. Well, part of the assignment is, does your string contain UMGC or any uppercase or lowercase combination of UMGC? And really, that's what we just did right here. We were doing, does this string contain any upper or lowercase permutation of my first name? So use that towards your assignment. Okay, that's all of the material for this week. I'll mention 3 things, or actually kind of just recap 3 things. This is for your assignment. Let's say we have a string here. This is my password. So you got to kind of do 3 things. 1, you have to make sure your password is within a certain length. It can't be less than a number of characters. It can't be more than a number of characters. So how do we get how many characters are in the string? The length of s tells us how many characters are in the string. So now I just need to see, well, is I within the range that I'm allowed? Yes or no? Okay. The next thing is you need to determine if UMGC is anywhere inside that password. And how can we do that? We can do, in pseudocode, is UMGC in S lowercase, right? And then you need to say the #, it needs to be in your password, but I think it said it can't be the first character, or maybe it's the last character. Read the assignment. So how do we see if it's the first or last character? Well, we do s dot starts with, we do s dot ends with, right? That'll tell me yes or no, does it start or end with a specific character? And then does it exist somewhere in there? We could say, is this in S? Yes or no? So those are kind of 3 hints towards your assignment. And that's all the material for this week. I'll stand by for a few minutes for questions. We'll have a little short question and answer if you have any questions. If not, just feel free to drop off whenever you want. As always, this is being recorded and I will get it posted on YouTube here in the next couple hours. So standing by for questions. All right, sounds good, Alex. None for Randy. Okay, no questions. So if you do need help, please shoot me an email and I'll try to help you out the best I can. Really, the best source of material is to just rewatch these videos or any of the previous ones that I post on YouTube. But I'll get it posted and get the link sent out a little bit later today. All right, enjoy the rest of your day.